Good evening, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to a special Saturday episode of Critique Corner with me, Daniel Parker.
And me, DB Fastbinder. And yeah, I had some scheduling stuff come up on Thursday, and Daniel graciously decided to let us reschedule for this weekend.
Yes, there's no trouble here. And good to see you as always, Ninja.
Oh, hey, Ninja. I was wondering if we'd have you.
Yeah. If you are returning like Ninja, welcome back. If you're new, what we usually do is we do some reviews. We look
Mhm.
at something relatively new and then a classic movie. Uh, and then we usually also start off with the review of X-Men 97, the newest episode. But before we get into all of that, we'd like to talk about the box office.
Yep. By the way, just a quick heads up. I am house sitting this week, and I might be sitting in an easy chair, and you may occasionally see the camera shift, so hopefully people don't get too seasick.
Yeah.
But
No worries.
because we had D Rhino on last week, we gave his time over to talk about his book, or we gave the usual box office time over to talk about his book. So we missed out on the Fall Guy bombing pretty badly.
Yeah. A movie based on a very obscure 80s television series not doing well. Who would have thunk it?
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, it's so obscure that I didn't even know it was a thing. I just thought it
Yeah.
was an original property.
Yeah, I think it was only on for like a year or two.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't like the A Team or like Greatest American Hero or anything like that. It was just it came and went. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even think of any jokes I've seen on things that celebrate the 80s, like Family Guy or Robot Chicken or whatnot. I,
Yeah.
I just had no idea.
Yeah.
Uh, but that's right. We don't have the full weekend chart yet, but we can make some extrapolations from Friday.
Yes. So we had Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes dropping and doing okay.
Yeah, the numbers estimates it's going to hit a $50 million opening weekend. 22 million opening day, which counts Thursday night previews, is yeah, that's not bad at all.
Yeah.
Nice there per theater average, which for anybody who works at an AMC or whatnot, I'm sure they're appreciative.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the fourth movie in this rebooted Planet of the Apes franchise, which we were talking before the show that we never really gotten into Planet of the Apes. It was just kind of, I mean, I watched like the first one, and then maybe a couple of the sequels. I just didn't really see the appeal of them.
I liked the classic ones, but so they used to do a really good job of really selling you on movies back in the day. And by that I mean, I was over at my grandparents one time, and I was watching Turner Classic Movies,
Mm.
and they had gotten the rights to, for the first time, show the classic Planet of the Apes movies. Now,
Mm.
objectively, after the first one, every movie they had less and less budget,
Yeah.
and they weren't especially great movies after the first one. Like
Yeah.
when people talk about how back in the days sequels were expected to do worse and worse, that there's a prime example of a mainstream franchise that just had diminishing returns all over the place.
Yeah, it got so bad that like with the second one, I think Charlton Heston's only in like one scene.
Yeah, I think he didn't. I think he died early on or something.
Yeah.
Uh, but they had the actor who was one of the top apes. I think it was McDowell,
Yeah, Roddy McDowell.
Rodney
Yeah.
McDowell. See, I wanted to say Rodney, but I was doubting myself. I need to have more faith in myself. But they had him out there, and they filmed him on a beach that looked like the classic end of the movie, talking about the series and kind of selling it up. And they had little mini documentaries in between the movies. So Like over the
Yeah.
course of a few weeks, I ended up watching all of them, and again, like they did a great job of selling me on these being not quite important works. Actually, no, they did try to sell me on them being important works of cinema, and they kind of succeeded on my 13-year-old self.
Yeah. Ninja says that everyone died in the second one, prompting time travel. Ah, okay.
Oh, right, that's right. At the very end, like one of the apes hits the nuke, or like they had this cult of the bomb, as I recall,
Uh,
and one of the apes, or it was, no,
it
I
was
think it was
Heston, I thought.
yeah, well, Feston was barely in the second one. So some human decided to blow up the Earth rather than let it be ruled by these crazy apes.
Yeah.
And then the third movie took was like the kind of the fall of humanity and the rise of the apes.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I can't remember. And then the offspring of the one of the apes, I think also played by Roddy McDowell, becomes like the big leader. And
oh, right,
yeah.
because he ended up coming back in time somehow
Right. Yeah.
in a human society where they already had armies of ape servants,
Right. Yeah.
which is an interesting choice.
Yeah. It, yeah. It was, and yeah, it was a very bizarre series, and of course, then you had the Tim Burton remake, which was god
Nobody really
awful.
talks about.
Yeah, because it had probably the worst ending of any movie.
Where did it end?
So Mark Wahlberg goes back in time, or at least he thinks he goes back in time, and he ends up he crashes his ship in Washington D.C. and the whole planet's been turned are all apes, and
Oh,
like
right.
the Washington
Oh
Monuments,
God.
the bad guy, and yeah.
All right, the Abe Lincoln ape.
Yeah, and then he gets arrested. It's like what? It's like Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I'll just have him get arrested.
Yeah. So I guess I will say that this movie, at least these movies, from what I understand, have merit to them.
Hmm.
Probably more merit than the concept has ever gotten.
Yeah, yeah,
And I watched the film threat review of this one, and it sounded all right.
yeah.
But, $50 million opening, that can't be what they're hoping for with a budget close to what they put into Dune.
Mm, yeah, yeah, and that's of course that's assuming that they're actually telling the truth about how much money they spent on it.
That's true. I mean, I think we've discovered recently, thanks to the various filings, that even the original Guardians of the Galaxy movie was heavily over budget and technically wasn't profitable in theaters.
Right. Yeah. Mm. But yeah, yeah. So we had apes, Fall Guy, and then we had Challengers, which is that's the Zendaya movie. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, that was one I kept seeing trailers for in front of every movie I was watching for a bit, and every time it just seemed like miserable and unpleasant. And that's the general feeling I got from reviews I watched of it, where it's just it is weird. Like it's sold on being kind of sexy, and like the trailer seems to imply that there's going to be a menage a trois scene, and this does not happen.
Oh, of course.
And apparently it sounds like another case where it's actually there's more chemistry between the two guys, and neither of them have with Zendaya, which is interesting.
Ugh. Oh
That
man.
might be intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think Matt Reeves directed this new one. I think it was somebody else. Um, but yeah, it sort of reminded me of a there's a horror movie I saw, old '80s horror movie called Witchboard, or was it Witchboard, where that was kind of the case, where like the two male leads had more chemistry than either one of them had with the woman.
Oops.
Yeah,
It was Wes Ball directing.
never heard of him.
Nope. Yeah, from the sounds of it, this is kind of a soft reboot where you don't necessarily need to watch the first three movies to get this one.
Okay.
I also heard good things about the special effects provided by Weta,
Oh, okay.
which is
Yeah, that's
interesting.
for those of you who don't know, that's Peter Jackson's company, or at least it was his company. I don't know if he still
Yeah.
owns it or not.
Rounding out the top five, we have Tarot. It's not like a really bad Sony horror movie.
Mm,
And then, and this is troublesome, Godzilla X Kong still in the top five after 43 days in release
yeah.
and making $600,000 on the day.
Yeah, it just not hadn't quite passed the 200 million mark domestically.
Which, not gonna
Which,
lie, that's not any amount of box office to sneeze at.
no, it's not. I mean, well, yeah, half a billion total.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although with that's right. This one, okay. We live in a strange world where it cost less money to make Godzilla and King Kong fight each other at the center of the earth than it did to make a Ryan Gosling film about him as a stunt guy.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, excuse me. The Fall Guy was $10 million less expensive. Part,
Okay,
it should not be in the same conversation.
yeah, yeah. Oh man.
But yeah, rest of the top 10, they're still putting in the numbers for yesterday, so we don't have the full top 10 here.
Yeah.
But Star Wars Episode One, Phantom Menace, it seems to have petered out, which is not
Yeah.
surprising.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody who wanted to see that movie again in the theater went and saw it. I didn't. I don't really feel like going back to see that movie again in the theater.
Uh, Also, weirdly, Kung Fu Panda 4 and Godzilla X Kong have almost the exact same amount of money, though King or Kung Fu Panda was out for longer.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um,
Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire, by the way, is now on. It's now available for digital rent and buy.
yeah, but it's still plugging away, making a little bit of money here and there in
Yeah.
theaters because what else is there to show in theaters?
True. Yeah.
Because I happened to go to walk by McDonald's today, and I confirmed something I had heard online, which is that they have the new Captain America movie toys at McDonald's right now when the movie was supposed to originally release.
Oh god.
When they were supposed to, when they're completely reshooting the darn thing.
Yeah.
And so the toys kind of give you an idea of what's in there. Do you know who the character Ruth is? Is that an established character? Is that somebody from Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Did she kind of have like red hair, reddish hair, and
Well, the toy looked like she was a brunette.
uh, maybe. Let me double check. Uh,
Because from the looks of it, they had a toy for Falcon Cap. They had one for Diamondback. They had one for Red Hulk. So Harrison Ford's going to get to be Red Hulk, I guess.
then he'll find
Uh,
out what a red Hulk is.
Probably won't.
No, probably
Let's
won't.
be honest.
Yeah, that's true.
He'll probably just memorize his lines and just where's my money?
Let's see. I don't know who Ruth is. No, there wasn't a Ruth
Uh,
in Falcon
okay.
and Winter
She-
Soldier.
The fact that she doesn't have a recognizable superhero name and looked like she was wearing kind of a generic shieldy outfit makes me think that she might just be an agent love interest, like a Agent Carter for Falcon.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm sure they had some sort of contract. McDonald's had whatever their contract was, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Well, we got to put these toys out now."
It's like, screw you. We're not going to hold on to these for months.
Yeah, yeah,
Store them and have to come up with a new toy at the last minute.
yeah,
It's kind of like when Wonder Woman 84 had a promotional blizzard with Dairy Queen. It's like, yeah, we don't care that you delayed it to December. The,
yeah,
the cups are ready now.
yeah. Oh man, yeah. Oh boy. What a yeah. It's a total mess up. Messy thing going on with Disney's just messing everything up. Yeah.
Disney's messing everything up. They got kneecapped by bad choices with the Writers Guild.
Mhm.
Just unpleasantness all around.
Indeed. Yeah.
Speaking of tragedy all around,
Yes.
New episode of X-Men 97.
Yeah, so this is Tolerance is Extinction Part 2. And obviously it picks up where Part 1 left off, where Magneto is goes to the North Pole and disrupts the electromagnetic field of the planet. And now the X and then Professor Xavier returns, and now they got to stop Magneto. But and they've also got to stop the well, they don't have to stop the human sentinels, but they have to prevent the human. So the plan is they got to
They got to
bring it
divide and conquer.
right, yeah, and of course I like how they had the two colored team names, blue and gold.
Yeah, I know that that's a thing that they did a few years back before the Krakoa era. I forget if that was ever explicitly a thing in the comics of the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm assuming it's a reference to the colors of their uniforms.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, so you got one team going to stop Magneto, and then you got another team that's got to they're going to Bastion to prevent the once they get the electromagnetic field back up, then they have to stop Bastion from bringing his human sentinels back online.
Right. Now the episode opens with Magneto bringing just really flexing on the X-Men, bringing Asteroid M, his floating space station inside of a huge iron asteroid, down to hover right over the mansion.
Yeah.
And he makes the offer, "Hey, come join me, and everything will, and give up on your stupid ideas."
Yes, and Rogue and Sunspot take him up on that, which is surprising to see from Rogue. You know,
Yeah, Sunspot actually, I think it makes a bit of sense because
yeah,
he wasn't. It's actually a case where them not having 20 episodes of him being with the team actually works to their benefit
yeah,
because he kind of tried their thing and he ended up handcuffed and hauled away from his parents' house with them not really objecting too much. Or did his parents even call the anti-mutant police on him?
no, they chased him to his apartment to the apartment, and then they're like, "Hey, we're being chased by these Sentinels," and then the Sentinels say, "No, we're not trying to harm them. We're here to help them." And
All right, and then the parents let them take them away.
right, yeah,
Yep. So he makes sense for him to be a little bit bitter.
yeah,
Now, Rogue's attitude didn't really jive.
yeah. Yeah, Ninja says, yeah, he figured the Rogue couldn't be the same when she dropped Trask. Yeah,
Yeah, that is a case that you could make. Is that like is did she absorb some of Trask's inherent assholeness into herself, assholishness into herself? Because
yeah,
okay, it's one I can kind of see. I can see a world where Rogue loved Gambit. Gambit died. She went on a tear, and things went awfully for her. And she decides that joining up with Magneto makes sense. Like everything is lost. Torch the world. She's
yeah.
actually kind of filling the role that Colossus played in the original Fatal Attraction storyline.
Okay.
Because in that storyline, his sister Magic had died, and so that's why he was feeling kind of embittered about Professor Xavier's dream.
Mm, okay. Yeah.
Uh, the thing is that I don't think they necessarily sold it very well. I also can't see Rogue roasting multiple X-Men the way that she did.
Yeah.
I recall her, making fun of Morph for dying.
Yeah.
That was kind of uncalled for.
Yes. Yeah.
Did she also make fun of Jean for dying?
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah. And then be turning into Phoenix. Yeah, with the Phoenix thing. Yeah.
Yeah, like she roasted some X Men hard on the way out, and there was one person in Jester Bell's comments who was like, "Well, it could be that Rogue is working with with Professor X as a mole," and it's like, dude, she had so many chances this episode to go, haha.
Yeah, yeah. Or maybe a mole for Mystique, but I doubt that either.
Oh yeah, no. Well, Mystique is a non-entity in this show so far,
Yeah, yeah,
but still, it's like you just really want her to not be behaving like this,
right. Yeah,
which I agree is a bit out of character.
yeah, yeah.
So this, I would say that this show as a whole, I'm going to agree with Jester Bell that this show as a whole has not been a good showcase of the rogue character, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Yeah, she's been doing stuff like completely out of character, and in the whole her whole romance with Magneto was just so weird and creepy, and yeah,
Yeah. It, the way I would put it is that I could see you forcing Rogue into the situation, but you would have needed a lot more episodes. It's kind of
mm,
like how there's a level where Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, I could conceivably see him being broken that way because that's sort of what happened to Obi-Wan to an extent.
yeah,
If you compare him from the prequels to the sequel or to the original
original,
trilogy,
yeah,
but you didn't earn it, and you can't just declare it happened off camera.
yeah, yeah. And Ninja says that yeah, like she says you weren't there in front of Nightcrawler, who was there. Yeah, um,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
and,
it was yeah, it just yeah didn't.
and for that matter, why would they be there? They were off doing other missions.
Yeah.
There was no reason for them to be there. They
Hmm.
had no way of even anticipating a Sentinel attack.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I heard the same thing too, Ninja. That the yeah Bo DeMeo that he had a problem with the episode number.
Yep, it's unfortunate, but I'm gonna quote the longtime sci-fi reviewer SF Debris, where he was talking about how Star Trek Five, they what's his name, Shatner wanted to make it a exploration of man's search for God and other heady issues, and the studio said, "Oh, we want to make it light and comedic because Star Trek Four made so much money,"
Mm,
and he kind of sold them on, "I can do both."
yeah.
Uh, this is similar insofar as this is kind of similar insofar as you wanted to do the storyline, but you didn't have enough episodes. You changed the storyline.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And yeah. So like I guess we should get into one of the big spoiler or the big event that happens at the end of the episode.
Yeah, yeah, or well, okay. So I think we've said enough about us feeling like Rogue was out of character and hasn't been well served by this show.
Yeah.
Um, so the two teams split up, and whatever minor critiques I had of the animation in the earlier episodes, they got ironed out by this point because
Yeah.
this is some top tier action animation.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. Yeah, those yeah, all the action and fight scenes in both locations were very well done, and the one team fighting Magneto and Rogue and Sunspot, yeah, like that was yeah, especially with Magneto's you know magnetism,
And also they had a fight with Jean Grey versus Mister Sinister in a bowling alley, and they had fun with there being all these things for Jean to throw at him.
yeah, yeah, she's throwing bowling balls at him, and yeah,
Yeah. At one point, like he gets thrown through the strike zone, and there's the sound of the pins falling down. And
yeah,
uh, also, I think Morph might be low key one of the most powerful members of the team, since
yeah,
dude can just turn into the Hulk and apparently manifest Hulk level strength.
yeah,
It makes you wonder why he bothered turning into Psylocke in episode 2.
yeah,
Considering that he was mostly using her just for sword play.
yeah, yeah.
Like, if you could turn into the Hulk, that's your dominant strategy in most situations.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so yes, okay. So we've talked about this before. Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Yeah.
Aside from Rogue, this is a good episode that's continuing on with the storylines.
Mhm.
Uh, so up in Asteroid M, they're clashing. Weirdly, Roberto is showing more hesitation and worry about fighting his former friends than Rogue is, which
Yeah.
part of the out of characterness.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, but Professor X attempts to force Magneto to fix the Earth's magnetic field with his telepathy.
Hmm.
Magneto responds by using his magnetism to force the telepathy blocking helmet onto Charles's head, thus stopping
Yeah.
him. And Wolverine goes, F it, and stabs him in the back with his claws.
Yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately, it wasn't a killing shot because then Magneto rips him away, and then the classic moment from the comic books, Magneto rips out the adamantium from Wolverine's body.
Yes. I remember I read that I had that comic book at one point. I read through it many times as a kid just because I thought that was such a cool moment where it's like Magneto finally goes, uh, it's basically, okay, dude, you've been cashing checks you can't cash with me for a long time.
Yeah,
Do you understand what what our power sets are?
yeah,
He said it in a smarter way than that, of course. But
yeah,
so now, does this mean we're going to get Neanderthal, noseless, weird looking Wolverine? I don't know. I kind of hope not. That was a weird look.
yeah, yeah. I don't want that. Yeah.
But that does imply that Wolverine is going to get some more focus in the second season
Yes.
because you
Yeah.
can't really, although at the pace that this show resolves things like Rogue or something like Storm losing her powers,
Yeah.
it could be resolved in an episode or two. So that would be kind of a letdown.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Oh
yeah.
well. Uh,
Yeah. Oh well.
uh,
One other thing I do want to point out is that a lot of the characters they do wear their original costumes.
right, they're '80s costumes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, which that was a cute little thing. I think in Wolverine's case, wasn't it just because his normal costume was totally ripped to shreds?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Ninja mentioned something I forgot. Yeah. Omega Red had a cameo in
Yeah.
episode 8.
Oh right, when they shut down the world's technology, the
Yeah.
stuff that was keeping Omega Red under wraps suddenly deactivated.
Yeah.
Which that would make sense to bring him in for a season 2 storyline with Wolverine trying to get his adamantium back,
Yeah.
or
Oh,
at least dealing with not having his adamantium.
right. Yeah. And he also points out Rogue wore her first costume as a villain.
That's true.
Yeah.
She with Gambit's jacket over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So lots of visual callbacks, lots of good animation. We kind of harped a bit on Rogue seeming out of character, but I think by and large everybody else was well served in this episode.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Uh, One thing I will point out is that it is supposed to be the year 1997. I don't think they them pronouns were a concept yet. I thought of maybe gender studies academia, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's well it's very progressive of you, Rogue, that even as you're roasting a man for uh, having died once horribly at the hands of and then being revived by Mr. Sinister, that you take the time to respect their pronouns.
Yeah.
that, that stuck out to me just as a amusing little moment.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Jeez. Yeah.
But so yeah, overall, I still say this show is worth looking into. We mostly
Yeah.
harp on Rogue because we both watched Jester Bell, and Jester Bell has the worst luck with picking characters to identify with between Rogue and Harley Quinn.
Yeah. Yeesh. Well, I can understand Rogue more than Harley Quinn.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think with Harley Quinn she so much relates to her on a personal level so much as really enjoys the character.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But
Yeah.
I hope that most people don't relate to really any version of Harley Quinn because they're all kind of awful in their own ways.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
I don't have a good transition for this one, but at least not a direct transition. But Mr. Parker,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm putting together an action movie. Who do you think we should get for be the leading man?
The guy who played Saul Goodman in Breaking Bad.
Wow, you have the same weird thought process as the creators of Nobody.
Yeah.
So this was recommended to us by a friend of the show, D Rhino,
Yeah.
and it's currently available to stream on Amazon Prime. I ended up buying a Blu-ray because it was cheaper than me buying a month of Prime, and I enjoy not having Prime actually.
Mm. Yeah.
Outside of occasionally having to go through other means to watch TV shows we're reviewing.
Right. Yeah. 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 To each their own. Yeah.
Yep. But anyway, so I hadn't heard of this movie before. Apparently, it came out in theaters during COVID.
Yeah. I remember vaguely seeing like people talking about it online. And they had the same, let's just say some people had the same worries about this movie that they did about Joker. And all I can
Mm.
say is
Oh, you
the,
mean like the oh, it's going to encourage radicalism,
yes, yeah. But I can tell you that's not the case with either movie. So
right? They could not manifest a violent incident at a movie theater to happen,
right,
no
yeah,
matter how much they wanted it to.
yeah. But yeah, so so we watched Nobody, which the title is it kind of has a double meaning, or not kind of, it does have a double meaning.
Right. I think this is going to be a high spoiler review because it is hard to talk about the movie. Like I can generically say that it's a competent action movie and it's not a bad time.
Right, yeah, I agree with that.
There, that is our non-spoiler review.
Yeah.
Uh, we let the spoilers begin. Okay,
Yes. Yeah.
so Mr. Odenkirk is playing who seems to be an ordinary family man living a humdrum life.
Yes. Yeah. He works at like a manufacturing plant for his father-in-law. Takes the bus to work. And he basically has the same morning routine every single day, and just nothing really big happening with him. Of course, he's got a wife. He's got two kids. Um, Son looks like he's about what, 15, 16, somewhere around there.
That'd be my guess. And like, yeah, he has no use for his dad because he thinks his dad is a weakling.
Right. And yeah.
But his daughter really loves her father and thinks the world of him.
Yeah. Um,
The wife, if the wife is not having an affair, she is thinking about it. I think from the
yeah.
way that she behaves.
Yes. Yeah. The wife's a real estate agent. And but then one night, things go wrong because a couple break into their house, um, and they're obviously looking for money, but they don't really have a whole lot of cash on them. They steal his watch, and then he's just about to. He's got a driver, a golf club in his hand. He's about to bash the woman's head in, but then he stops, and then
Right.
yeah, I remember watching.
After his son has tackled one of them to the ground and is wrestling with him, and
Right,
she has
yeah,
pulled a gun on him.
yeah, and he's about to bash her head in with the golf club, but then he stops for some reason. And I remember watching and thinking, "What the hell is wrong with you?"
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah,
Like all I could think at the time was, okay, so what? He thinks that this is just going to escalate the situation. Is he worried that if he hurts one of them, that they'll definitely hurt his son?
yeah. But then yeah, he stops himself, and then he tells his son to let the guy go, and then then the two robbers leave, and
Yeah, and at this point, you think that the movie is going to be about a kind of a weak man finding his strength, and
right,
it's sort of
yeah.
like that. But I was kind of more expecting it to be a weak man who had never really had strength finding his strength.
No, yeah, it's you actually come to find out that it was a strong man who became weak and then has to become strong again.
Right. And what's funny about it is that the whole thing could have been avoided if he had just looked under the couch and noticed that his daughter's favorite kitty bracelet was not, in fact, stolen.
Right. Yeah. Because that's yeah. At first, he doesn't really. He's trying to let it go, but then yeah. Then when his daughter's like, "Oh, my kitty cat bracelet's stolen, it is gone," and he thinks they stole it, and
Yeah,
so
that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, you can disrespect me, but my little angel.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, the other part of it too is that he visits his father, who's living in a nursing home, and his father's played by Christopher Lloyd.
Hmm.
And you find out that his dad used to be an FBI agent, so he gets his dad's old FBI badge and his
And a
gun, and
gun. Yeah.
yeah, so he goes around town because he saw a tattoo on one of their wrists, so he's going around all the tattoo parlors to say, "Hey, have you seen this tattoo?" And yeah, and then he goes into the one real scuzzy tattoo place where he looks like he's about to get beaten up, and the one of the guys, the old guy who's there, who's a Vietnam vet, sees a tattoo on his wrist, and looks like, thank you for your service, and then goes into a panic room.
Yeah, proceeds to lock himself in a panic room, which makes the other guys back down.
Yeah. Um,
So our Mr. Nobody proceeds to track down where these two people are,
mhm,
and he is about to, well, it's from the writer of John Wick. He's about to John Wick them,
yeah.
um, when he realizes that they have a kid, and so he again backs down.
Right.
Now, at this point, you're kind of thinking to yourself, okay, there's something weird about this guy because, like, I could, I'm gonna pull out a name out of my head, name out of the air. I could see a Steve Carell character in a movie borrowing his tough dad's gun and badge, flashing it around, and then getting his stuff pushed in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that's the start of his training arc. So that was kind of what I was expecting to happen. But the way that he made those guys back down, and the fact that he had been in the military at some point, made me go, okay, there's some sort of secret story going on here.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing we forgot to mention is he has I guess he was like a foster brother that he talks to,
Oh, right.
who's I guess he's presumed dead, and the only way they talk to each other is through this old CB radio.
Right. And the interesting thing is they always, whenever they're speaking, it's always like being routed through his home speaker system. So you have the dials moving along.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, and that brings up a kind of a technical point that I thought was interesting. Or I should say, this movie is just very slickly directed.
Hmm.
Like when they're early on in the movie, when they're showing every day of his being the same, they do like very quick smash cuts to the repeating events.
Yeah.
Like when he gets robbed, he's just right back into the routine, but clearly something is off.
Yeah. Um, yeah. And then so after he leaves the couple, he goes and punches a brick wall with his bare hands.
Yeah, I was thinking, okay, edgy boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna. I might feel nice in the moment, but
That's gonna hurt.
yeah,
Yeah.
I, assuming your hands aren't just completely broken.
Yeah.
But thankfully they aren't because he rides the bus home, feeling defeated because while he got his watch back, he did not in fact get the kitty cat watch back.
Yeah.
And in one of the, it would be fair to call this scene a little bit contrived.
A little. Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
yes, yeah. So what happens is they're on the bus, and this Humvee crashes into a barricade that's right next to the bus, right next to it, and a bunch of these like drunk Russian mob guys get out,
Hmm.
and they're like, "Hey, let's." I want to, they want to get on the bus, and of course the bus driver is intimidated, so she lets them on. And there are other people on the bus with him, including a young woman,
Yeah.
and he's and you see how seeing how they're acting and everything, and he's just, and that's when uh, Odenkirk's just like, okay, I'm gonna do something about these guys.
Yeah. And the impression I kind of got was it was kind of death wishy, where it's like, oh, a chance to unleash all this anger and violent urges I had earlier. Thank you.
Yeah, and yeah, so he just proceeds to have this prolonged fight on this bus with all these Russian mob guys, and of course, you could kind of tell as the fight starts that he's rusty. He hadn't done it in
Mm.
a while, so it's yeah, he's not quite with it. But then he finally gets his gets into a rhythm, or gets uh, finally figures out what to do, and then just beats them senselessly. And
Yeah.
yeah, and one of them, he crushes their throat, and gives them a quick emergency tracheotomy. And but yeah, so then he goes home, and this is the okay. This is the part of the movie that I kind of was like a little confused by, because he comes home and his wife is still up, and she's like, where have you been? And she sees him, he's just got all these injuries, and his shirt's covered in blood, and he's like, yeah, it was one of those nights.
Right. And she's very understanding about it. It's like, what?
Yeah. So she clearly knows about what he used to do. And so then we cut to this Russian mob boss, and who's, f- uh, as crazy as Odenkirk's character is, this guy's even crazier.
Yeah, I would say that I kind of thought they were trying a little too hard to play up the crazy thing.
Yeah,
Like he's kind of quirky. Oh, he's quirky because he owns this club and he goes up and does karaoke at his club.
yeah,
And oh, some one of the Russian. So he basically runs a cash bank for the Russian mob.
yeah,
And it's like, oh, one of the holders of the. They had some special name for it that I don't recall.
yeah. It was
But
it was basically it's basically like the Russian mob's 401k is what it
yes,
was. Yeah,
uh, and so it's we're worried about having a guy who goes up on stage and sing do it, and then he just random. I don't even think he kills the person who objected. I
no, he goes and kills another guy, and then yeah,
right just
and
to prove the point in kind of a violent in a like overly violent. Well, not over. Okay, when I say overly violent, I mean like disproportionately violent way. A very
yes,
unpleasant death for
yeah.
nothing. And the Russian mobsters are just like, oh, okay, yeah, you've proven that you're tough. Well, the guy had a 3% share in the bank, so his shares devolved to us, so we're okay with this.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the guy finds out that, of course, one of the guys that Odenkirk beat up was actually the guy whose throat he crushed, was the Russian mob guy's little brother.
Yeah,
And yeah, so he goes to see him all in the hospital. And I will say, like, is obviously with the being the from the writer of John Wick, if you've seen like especially like the first John Wick, has a lot of dark humor in it. This movie has a lot of dark humor in it. Um, so like the Russian mob guy, he's in the hospital. And he grabs one of the chairs from the waiting room, and he goes into the guy's room, and
yeah,
he flings the chair at the guy right in the head.
yeah. Like and just beating him with the chair as he's interrogating. Like, what happened? How many people did this? What do you mean it was just one guy?
Yeah, 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 and so then they one of the guys managed to get Odenkirk's bus pass. So then they try to figure out. So that's when they try to figure out who this guy is. And I did like how they hired this woman who's like a computer hacker
Yeah,
to find out who he is. And then once she finds out, she like prints all the pictures off and throws it at the mob guy. And she's got her suitcase. She's like, "Okay, I'm out of here."
you don't have to worry about paying me. Bye.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So, so what we find out is that Bob's character was Well, he was nobody,
Hmm.
um, which basically meant that he was he had called himself an auditor for the military earlier, and that's true in a sense, in the sense that he would basically go around sniffing out corruption and put an end to it rather violently.
Yes.
Actually, rather reminded me of the premise of the beekeeper,
Mm, okay.
since that was the same idea of, oh, it's the bees that take out the rogue bees that are endangering the hive.
Mm. Yeah. And he yeah, he does so with he did so with ruthless efficiency. Um, and so then the rest of the movie is basically just is basically Bob like trying to fight for his life against these Russian mob
Uh,
guys, which includes a scene again reminiscent of John Wick when they all go into his house and he has to fight them off. And
yeah. Oh,
yeah,
there's one detail though.
mm,
So you might ask, okay, how did a guy like that become, to use popular internet vernacular, a blue-pilled simp?
yeah,
Uh, he basically let one guy go, and thinking, okay, he's just going to go back to his nefarious ways.
mhm,
And no, he just married somebody, had a kid on the way, and was living a happy life. And Bob said, I want that for me.
yeah,
And so that's when he stopped being nobody
right,
and became nobody. It's
yeah,
it's clever, you see.
yeah, yes, yes. um,
Um,
yeah,
but yeah, he has to fight the Russian mob in his house after he puts his family in the safe room downstairs. When in the course of setting up his defenses, that's when he finds the kitty necklace that was just sitting under the couch the whole time. And that's another example of the humor of this movie, where
yeah,
oh, if you just looked under the couch, whole movie would have been unnecessary.
right, yeah. um, but yeah, and then so then he gets well, he gets kidnapped at first, but then he gets himself out of it, because he gets put in the trunk of the car. And little known, probably a little known fact that some people don't know is if you ever, hopefully this never happens to you, but if you do find yourself getting put in the trunk of a car, you can open the trunk up. There's like a latch in there to for just that reason. So, and that's what
Yep.
he does, and he opens it up, and of course he can't jump out of the back because they're moving too fast, but then he gets a fire extinguisher. And yeah,
Right, distracts them, gets them to crash.
yeah,
There's a character we didn't mention who is this black Russian guy who seemed like he was going to be a bigger deal, but he just dies in the middle of the movie.
yeah,
Kind of a shame, because I was kind of looking forward to more of him, because he was like the one minion of the Russian mob who actually had like a name and a thing going on. But
yeah. Yeah, he had an interesting backstory where his father was an Olympic athlete in
yeah, from Ethiopia.
Ethiopia. Yeah, and left his he left him and his mom, and they were in Russia. I guess. And so yeah.
Right, he got to grow up during Glasnost, and then the collapse of the Soviet Union. So eh, rough times for him.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, and then basically uh then
Well, so then Bob goes and proceeds to kill a bunch of people and burn down the entire bank,
yes.
including all the money.
Yeah, and then he shows up at the nightclub where the Russian mob guy's doing karaoke, and he's just sitting there eating a steak, like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Yeah, some nice casual moments there. And this all, once the Russian mobster freaks out, and once he finds out that he has had all of his money destroyed, and weirdly enough, Bob offers him like, hey, where did he get the idea that he wanted to quit? Did he say it himself, or did one of his people say it?
It's probably one of his people, I think.
Yeah, because they really
Yeah.
hadn't interacted before. But hey,
Oh
just
no, it
take.
was Colin Salmon's character, the in the barber shop.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, he got a bunch of info from him, and he told him, like, yeah, he's in charge of this, basically this nest egg for the Russian mob, but he doesn't want to do it anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
I hear you don't want to do it anymore. Just go retire somewhere quietly. But the Russian mobster, being kind of a crazy villain, proceeds to launch an attack on him at the factory where we left out the. Yeah, well, we could talk about it later.
Yeah.
But he had bought the factory from his father-in-law just specifically so they could have a big gunfight in the middle of it without anybody being around.
Right. Yeah.
And Bob proceeds to save the day, along
Yes.
with help from his father and an unexpected assist from his foster brother.
Right. Yeah. In a very, very well choreographed and slightly over the top action sequence, but that didn't bother me because it's
From the writer of John Wick.
right. Yeah.
Yep. So Daniel, I tend to talk too much in these reviews. What was your overall impression of it?
I enjoyed it. Yeah. I kind of felt the same way I did with Death Wish, where the beginning of the movie, it's like you're angry with it, but then you're angry with what's going on, but then as the movie progresses, you start to get into it more, and you figure out what it is that the filmmakers are going for, and
Hmm.
I would also say the same thing with John Wick, where it was just like, yeah, you're sad that whatever it is that happens, but then once the main character decides, all right, I'm gonna go get some revenge, it turns out turns out for the best. Yeah.
Uh, I'll say for me, Bob Odenkirk being the action star, the gritty action star, was a little bit of a hard pill for me to swallow.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad, but I mostly know him as a comedic actor from things like Mr. Show or whatnot.
Yeah.
So I had a little bit of a hard time taking him seriously in the role. He was definitely trying, definitely
Yeah.
going for it. He never did anything that actively broke it. It's just entirely me typecasting him. So
Yeah.
um,
Well, in a way, he was kind of perfectly cast because you see that guy; he's very unassuming. So you don't
right,
you don't expect him to be this cold, calculated, cold-blooded killer. Yeah.
right. I would say that for my personal tastes, I think I would have probably preferred if they had been ripping off Death Wish a little bit more, where he was just an ordinary guy who manned up rather than being a secret badass the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's just a personal preference thing. I will say that I am squeamish enough that some of the violence was a little bit over the top for me.
Yeah. Um, yeah. There's some exploding bodies in there. Yeah.
Let's the exploding bodies. So I'm kind of big on proportionality, and I didn't necessarily feel like some of the early scenes, the violence was proportionate to what had been done.
Mm,
Like Bob was escalating it a lot of the time,
yeah.
which which makes sense for his character since he was the auditor,
Hmm.
the big time problem solver. But like it was a little bit odd that well he even said himself, I probably overcorrected trying to become so unassuming because earlier on in the movie he was being pushed around by his brother-in-law and you
Yeah.
know, he was implying he couldn't take care of his sister. So
Yeah.
they did a Chekhov's gun thing where he put the brother-in-law tried to give him a gun and he put the gun in the fridge, and then of course that gun got used later on during the big action scene at the plant.
Right. Yeah. So it was almost literally a Chekhov's gun. Yeah.
If it wasn't on the man, but it was just about everything else you could want.
Yeah.
Um, I enjoyed John Lithgow's scene, not John Lithgow,
Christopher
Christopher
Lloyd.
Lloyd's scene. I always get them mixed up when I'm talking about them for some reason. But I enjoy Christopher Lloyd's scenes where the assassins come for him and he just deals with them.
Yeah.
And the orderly comes in and is like, "Don't make so much noise." Because there was a shotgun blast and he was watching a western. Like, you need to turn that down. You're disturbing people or something like that.
He's like, okay.
Yeah, so I'd say that just for me personally, I probably liked the idea of this movie better than actually watching it.
Hmm.
But it's not like it's kind of like where I'll occasionally watch something outside of my personal genre preferences. Um, Like I can't call it bad. It just wasn't entirely for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Understandable. Yeah. Um.
Right, I would say my biggest stumbling points were even more so than it being Bob Odenkirk as the kick-ass action lead, which I could see some people having some trouble with Keanu Reeves as the badass action lead
Mm,
if they had just thought of him as being from Bill and Ted. So
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
actors actors have gotten over that before.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it was just like it was all very well done violence. I think I would have also preferred a bit more nuance from the villain,
Mhm.
but I
Yeah.
also
Yeah. He was pretty. He was pretty one track minded. Yeah.
yeah. But on the flip side, I noticed it was like a tight 90-minute movie, so you didn't necessarily have time for nuance. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, for just a short action movie, I would say that I liked the Beekeeper better, but I can appreciate what they were doing here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I kind of had. I like you. I kind of wish there was some. I wish that some of the characters were fleshed out a bit more, and maybe could have gotten a little more time with them, and gotten an explanation as to, like, with his wife, like, okay, well, did his wife know that he was an auditor? And
Right. When they were dating, would he just occasionally show up beaten up, and she was just blasé about it by this point, even though it had been years?
yeah, yeah, kind of like in Spy Family when Yor shows up and she's covered in blood, and her brother Yuri's just like, oh, hey, sis, hey, Yor.
Right. Like when you're operating on Spy Family logic in a live action show, you have issues.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but no, I can't call it bad.
No, I can't either. Yeah,
But no, it sounds like you enjoyed it more than I did. So glad you did.
yeah, yeah.
I think it's going to be the theme for our other movie review today. Unless do you have any more final thoughts on Nobody?
No, I don't have anything else to say on that.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, all I can say about our next review, if for those at home, grab a brew. Don't cost nothing.
We watched the classic National Lampoon's Animal House.
Yes. One of my favorite comedies of all time. And it's I think it's required viewing for anybody who is attending college or had attended college. um, but yeah, so this movie is came out in I believe came out in '76, and it's about students attending was specifically one fraternity house at Faber College, where knowledge is good.
Yes, that was kind of amusing, like that opening gag.
Yeah, and so we've got the well, okay, so it starts off. We meet two freshmen who are pledging, going through Pledge Week, or Rush, and it's Larry Kroger, who is played by Tom Hulse, better known as or best known for playing Mozart and Amadeus. And then you have Kent Dorfman, who's what was? Do you remember the name of his character from Babylon 5?
Um, let's find out. Yeah, played
Uh,
by Stephen First,
First, yeah,
the late Stephen First, who I hadn't realized that I have seen so much stuff with him in it.
yeah,
Like he was a voice actor in Freakazoid. He was a voice actor in Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. He was a character in Babylon 5.
yeah,
I went through his IMDb and I was like, wow, okay.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
just all over the place. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, he was Veer Koto, a second. He was kind of the second banana to one of the main alien characters,
Okay.
which is good casting for him.
Yeah.
Uh, Amusingly, he's fat in this movie. He suddenly slimmed down between like seasons either 2 and 3 or 3 and 4 of Babylon 5 because I think hit diabetes and had to lose a bunch of weight.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. Um, yeah.
Well, as this movie says, drunk, fat, and stupid is no way to go through life.
uh, but yeah, yeah. So at first they go to the Omega House, which is where all the this is the preppy fraternity,
Hmm.
and immediately. Although it's funny, funny when they walk through the door. So Larry walks through the door. He's like, "Hi, I'm Larry," and then one of the guys, Niedermeyer, he closes the door on, and he's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, nobody wants to deal with him.
No, yeah, and so, but they immediately get put in the corner with all the rejects that they don't want to be associated with. So then, Larry and Kent are like, okay, well, let's go over to the Delta House, and because Kent's brother was a
He was a
member of the
Delta.
fraternity. He was a Delta, yeah. So he's a legacy. So by rule, you kind of have to let them in. Um, and so then they walk up, and that's when they meet John Bluto Blutarski, played by Belushi, who's taking a whiz out on the front lawn, and like, "Hey, is the Delta House? Sure," and he gives him a little spray. um, yeah, and so yeah, then we meet the other members of the Delta House. We got uh, Otter, who's played by Tim Matheson. He's the ladies' man, and then you got his friend Boone, whose girlfriend is Karen Allen in the movie, and this was when Karen Allen was still cute.
Yep. Although looking at the picture for on IMDb, she actually no. How old is that picture? Okay, they're showing a picture of her from probably like 15, 20 years ago. Yeah, she's aged gracefully.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She looked okay in the last Indiana Jones movie, but uh,
Oh, that's right. I forgot that she was
they,
Marion. Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So then they pledge the fraternity, and then that's when the hijinks ensue. So they're basically, this movie is it's kind of anthological if you think about it, because it's basically
Right.
just like one thing that happens after another.
Right.
Um,
It's basically the Deltas being a terror to the rest of the campus, and the dean trying to shut them down.
right. Yeah, and he works with the Omegas to get them shut down, and Dean Wormer tells the lead prep guy, I can't remember what his Tom wasn't. No, it wasn't Tom. I can't remember his name. Um, but he said, "Oh, put Niedermeyer on it. He's a sneaky little shit, just like you." Um,
Was it Greg?
Greg, that's right. Yes, thank you. Um, yeah. So then they basically just a series of yeah. So one of the things they do is they're they get their okay, so they get their one of the things, they get all their pledge names, and uh so they give Larry's name is Pinto, and he goes, well, why Pinto? Why not?
Yeah.
And then Flounder and Kent becomes Flounder. um
An appropriate name since he flounders through the movie.
yes. Yeah, and there's even a scene there where they're going through all the slides of all the photos, and they're like, okay, Larry Kroger. Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, he's all right. And then they go to Kent, Kent Dorfman, and Belushi's like, ah!
Uh, uh,
Oh,
Didn't people start booing and throwing things at the projector?
yeah, because even the Deltas don't want him.
Yep. Like, he's legacy. We gotta let him in. Ah.
Uh, Ninja mentions he's only seen one scene from the movie, which yeah, when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor.
Yep. So yeah, like you said, it's kind of anthology style, where it's a almost like a series of comedy sketches that are loosely tied together.
Yeah, and interesting little factoid. Harold Ramis was one of the writers on the movie
Hmm.
with two other guys, and basically how they wrote the movie was they just sat in a room and they swapped college stories. It's like,
Okay, so they had a much more interesting college experience than I did then.
yeah, me too. Uh, but they were just telling like, well, a lot of it was like it's either stuff that happened to them or something that happened to someone they knew, or like
Hmm.
college urban legends, the kind of thing.
Right.
Like oh, like putting a horse in the dean's office.
Yeah, and then the horse dies of a heart attack.
Yeah, I did like that Belushi. Holy shit! Uh, um, but uh, but yeah, like a lot of it's just them going, doing all this stuff, and they're like, just making the school administration mad, and like, so like, oh,
They get put on the famous double secret probation.
yeah, double secret. We're on double secret probation, wherever that is. And so then they throw a toga. One of the things they do is they throw a toga party, uh, and that's when things really get bad, because that's when Otter ends up sleeping with the dean's wife.
Yeah, that doesn't go over well.
Go over well, and then yeah, and Larry, Pindo, he he drags the mayor's daughter out to the which they're like,
Oh, yeah,
uh,
then they deliver the dean's wife back to his house in a wheelbarrow, as I recall. No, it was a wheelbarrow or a shopping
no,
cart.
no, that was the mayor's daughter. It was
Oh,
a
okay.
shopping cart. Um, well, I also forgot too. One guy that has a very small role in the movie, Donald Sutherland. He plays one. He's the English professor, the cool English professor who lets him
Gets high with him and sleeps with the students.
yeah, gets high with him. Yeah, can I buy some pot from you?
Uh, Man, that actress really just seems to have a thing for college professors between this and Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah. Oh, I didn't think of that. Huh. Uh, yeah. So after the toga party, they one of my favorite scenes is the hearing where they're sitting in this basically trying to keep themselves to keep from getting kicked out of school, and Hodder gets up and he says, "Sorry, I got this." He said, "I'm pre-law. I thought you were pre-med. What's the difference?" And he goes up and gives this speech, and at the end he says, "I won't sit down here and listen to you badmouth the United States of America."
Right. It's like all of the Deltas are kind of awful people. Like the character you were describing a moment ago, Otter,
Yeah.
is a very manipulative guy.
Hmm.
Uh, he had this weird charisma to him, which made sense of why he could keep getting away with it.
Yeah.
Uh, and Yeah, so they decide that, well, we've lost our haul. They've confiscated all of our stuff, including the stuff we didn't even steal,
Yeah.
and we're going to do this, and we're going to destroy the annual float parade.
The homecoming parade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so they do.
Yeah.
And they quickly throw together a float with a damaged car that
DJ. Yeah,
Flounders
it was
had
Flanders' brother. Yeah, and
the
then
Flounders brother had lent him. Like
yeah,
they damaged the car and like, well, we can turn this into a float overnight, and they managed to. And again, hijinks ensue, and then the movie ends with yeah, okay, it's kind of does the American Graffiti thing where you have like this character went on to do this character went on to do this.
yeah,
Bluto ended up being a U.S. senator, which actually seems appropriate.
yeah. It does. Well, and Otter was a gynecologist in Beverly Hills.
Yes, also fitting.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. And he had Niedermeyer, who got killed by his own men in Vietnam.
Right in 1963.
Yeah.
Which
Um,
it kind of jostled me when I realized that, oh, this movie is taking place at some points that it's not taking place when the movie was actually made.
Yeah, interesting enough, it's in 1962, which is the same year
Okay,
American Graffiti takes place in.
so you're saying that they're part of a shared cinematic universe?
Mm. They're both made by Universal.
Well, might as well, right?
Yeah, why not? Yeah,
Right. So they're both kind of showing off the part of the '60s that still felt like the '50s.
right. Yeah.
Uh, so, so I'll say that watching this, I tried to watch it once in college. I had rented it, watched it for about 20 minutes, and then I could never remember if I was just bored with it or if I'd gotten busy.
Mm,
This was back in the days when you had to worry about Hollywood Video or whatnot charging you late fees. So I made a
yeah.
point of taking it back as soon as I could.
Yeah.
Um, but so watching it this time around, I think I concluded that, and this is okay. So I think I've been on the record. I have some, I have some off-brand takes occasionally. Like I love goofy humor. Simpsons is my jam. Just that type of
Mhm,
thing. Like this movie just does not vibe with me for whatever reason.
mm. Yeah.
Uh, Now I will say there were individual scenes I liked. Like I liked when Otter and his crew they needed dates for the night. So his plan is he goes to a different college where uh, a girl was killed in a mysterious kiln fire and pretends to be her unknowing fiance
Yeah.
to get some pity dates, a little bit of pity play
Yeah.
from her roommate.
Yeah. She was
Uh,
gonna make a pot for me.
right, and guy's like, "Oh, I shouldn't be alone tonight. Okay, I'll stay with you. Great. Can you get 3 more dates for my friends?"
Yeah. Yeah, and of course then they end up at a bar that they were not welcome in.
Yes. If it wasn't officially segregated, it was basically segregated.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah. We'll keep it YouTube friendly. We won't say
yeah.
what
Uh,
happens there, but
and there were a couple of edgy moments where that just kind of struck me as like one of them accidentally beds a very underage girl,
yes, yeah,
uh,
yeah,
but she seems very happy about this, and when they run into each other again later, like, Dad, that's the guy who me.
yeah, yes. We're
No,
getting married.
um, I will. So I think that if I was going to break down probably like why this movie doesn't work for me and me specifically, background as a teacher. So this movie offends my sensibilities and kind of gives me Vietnam flashbacks. Um, I just I am just not a John Belushi fan, and I don't get why people are at this point because I've given him a number of tries on this show, and I liked Blues Brothers significantly more than this one. Just
Mm.
I think part of it is that this movie is so influential that every single joke and scene in it I have seen quoted elsewhere, and weirdly enough, it was quoted elsewhere with more vigor than it was delivered originally.
Oh,
A lot of the time,
that
like
was it. Get it?
like the bombing, like when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor thing.
Oh
It's
yeah,
one of those things like where it came and went very quickly. And I was like, wait, what? That's one that stuck with people for 50 years. What?
yeah, yeah. Germans? Forget it. He's rolling.
Yeah. Um, so I and like and this was basically like it was like a scavenger hunt of, oh, that's what that's a reference to. Oh, that's what that's a reference to. From
Yeah,
just decades of movies and TV shows and stuff riffing on this movie.
yeah, yeah.
I also could definitely see where I felt like a lot of the timing and delivery had a very Simpsons esque style to it
Hmm.
in places.
Yeah, definitely. Wouldn't surprise me if, yeah, there was probably a lot of influences there. Yeah.
Yeah, we know that they had the episode where Homer went back to college, and that was just like that was him treating Animal House as if it was a documentary.
Yeah,
Well, a mix of Animal House and Revenge of the Nerds as if it was a documentary.
yeah,
Um, so like I so there are occasionally things where I stand against the majority and I say, "No, sir, you're wrong. I'm going to plant my feet at the roots of the tree of liberty," or whatever Captain America said in that Civil War comic that everyone likes to quote,
oh yeah,
uh, which is now a cringe line thanks to the Avengers video game and giving it to Kamala Khan. But that's
Ugh,
neither here nor there. Uh,
yeah,
there are times like, you know what? I'm not going to spoil anybody else's fun. I would say this is definitely an important movie, and if you're into comedy at all, it's worth a watch. And statistically, you will enjoy it more than I did. Almost certainly, just based on the sheer amount of impact that this has had. I,
yeah.
I guess what I've just started to conclude is that there is a strain of 70s and 80s comedies that just don't gel with me, and I
Mm,
don't know entirely why that is. Because I can remember being kind of unimpressed by Caddyshack, um,
yeah.
which that's also what's his name who wrote that one, right?
Harold Ramis. Yeah,
Yeah,
he directed it too, I think. Yeah.
yeah. So maybe I'm just not a Harold Ramis fan. I don't know.
Well, you liked the Ghostbusters movies, didn't you?
I thought the first Ghostbusters movie was all right. It wasn't my favorite. So maybe that's it. Maybe I just don't vibe with Ramis. That could be the secret sauce.
That may be. Yeah, his style of humor is just not your thing. Yeah,
Yep. Which again, I'm not gonna stand here and go this movie is awful. It's just not specifically for me.
yeah. Well,
So, but but I'm not. I so you know what? Pillory me in the comments as much as you like. I, I'm being humble about it.
yeah, well, no, I understand. Yeah, I mean, it is certainly a you know, it definitely has humor that I can see why some people wouldn't like it. I just I forgot to mention one other my favorite scenes when they're taking all the stuff out of the house, and one of the guys has a box full of liquor bottles, and he trips, and the bottles go crashing on the ground, and Belushi's is like, no! But yeah, this is one of those movies that I watched with my family and we enjoyed it, and
Mhm.
yeah, it's just but yeah, I completely understand. It's why it wouldn't be your cup of tea. It's just it's obviously it's yeah, it is what it is.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep. It wasn't an awful time.
yeah,
Yeah. But what would make this a better time for everybody? If you remember to like, smash that subscribe button, do
and
unspeakable things with the notification button.
yes, all that good stuff. Yeah, and yeah, Ninja thing kind of seems to be with you on this, DB. A lot of his comedies weren't his taste either. But yeah,
Yep. Yeah. Comedy is one of those interesting things where like is a drama told well will generally work and and like be kind of universal. Comedy is like uh, comedy is very like there are objective rules to comedy, but the actual experience of comedy is very subjective.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So the, everybody is eventually going to be the outlier on something.
yeah. Well, I'll give one with me. I know a lot of people really love Seinfeld. I never got it.
I never really tried watching Seinfeld. I'll say that I've enjoyed clips I've seen out of context, but that I'm sure that's basically getting the the best moments that people bother to upload to YouTube illegally.
Right. Yeah. Well, the issue I had was that when you said you find the characters in this movie very likable, I didn't find any of the characters in Seinfeld likable because they're just
Oh,
jerks.
oh yeah. I mean, there's a reason that Seinfeld ends with all the characters going to prison and having all the things that they've done over the course of the series thrown in their faces.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you everybody for tuning in.
Yep.
We appreciate it, and do all the stuff that DB mentioned a minute ago. And we'll see you on Thursday.
Yep. Barring anything else weird that happens, I don't see why it wouldn't work
Right.
out this time.
Yeah. Yeah. We're on it. We're on NFL. We're like an NFL football team playing a game on a Sunday, and then we're gonna turn around and play it on a Thursday. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yep. You have a good one too, Ninja.
Yeah. Yeah. Good night, Ninja, and yeah. See you Thursday.